If you love Baltimore sports, you'll love WNST.net.
Give it up for Todd Heap. We're out here in Harford County. It's all brought to you by Kelly and Associates and our friends at Fremont Mortgage, as well as First Mariner Bank, the first in a series of events. And I tell you, for There Goes My Hero and for my wife was diagnosed with leukemia on March 20th. She just returned home from the hospital about 6 hours ago. So after 41 days, as she said, she's escaped jail. I tried to jailbreak her the other day, but she's home, she's bald, she's beautiful, and we're awaiting a bone marrow transplant. Todd has been incredibly, what an amazing thing that you're the first guy in this series, because Flacco's doing it, Stover's doing it, and all this, but when I think of the great people, and I wrote about this at NST a few months ago, about people that gave back to the community, you have a living legacy going on here that you left behind, didn't you?
Yeah, I did a lot of great things here, and it's more thanks to the community than it is to me. You know, I've always been grateful to everybody and how you guys have all supported me when I've been playing here 10 years with the Ravens, and so, you know, it's really easy to give back to people with such huge hearts, and I've been happy to do it all these years, and I'm excited to be here with you today in this endeavor.
And you don't even know much about it. It was just a call to you, and when this whole thing went, why are you here? Like, what are you doing in Baltimore? You were coming to Baltimore. We kind of organized this 2 weeks ago.
Well, there's another charity event that we did this week called Young Life, and it's called the Battle of the Birds, where we play, you know, a lot of the guys, we get to play together and play a round of golf, the Ravens against the Orioles.
Okay.
And so that was yesterday.
Tell me the Ravens won.
I can't bring you that good news.
All right. Hey, the Orioles won. You're booing the Orioles. Come on. What's wrong with you guys? I thought Ripken was from down the street here.
We're working on a relationship with the Ravens and the Orioles, and it was going really well.
Until you mentioned my name.
Until Tommy Hunter and I were matched up against each other, and you know.
He's younger than you.
He's younger, but he, apparently our handicaps were similar, and apparently he played way better than his handicap.
He was a ringer.
And so the relationship issue just got a little worse because he was fudging on his handicap. He pencil whipped everybody. So no, it was a good time. Great charity. Young Life, they're trying to be a good influence to many of the kids in the inner city that don't have fathers, don't have parents to look up to, and so that's what we did yesterday. Raise money for kids, to just give them mentorship, teach them what it's like to be a man, teach them what it's like to go through childhood and into adulthood, and be a good influence on their lives. And that's where it starts, is with the kids.
Well, a lot of people ask me, what's Todd Heap doing up in Aberdeen on a chilly rainy Tuesday night, Oriole game canceled. So my wife was diagnosed on March 20th, and through the course of time, I met this gentleman over here on the right. This is Erik Sauer, my friend. He's from Bel Air. Give it up for Erik. He's a real hero. So when my wife was diagnosed with leukemia, very quickly we found out that she needed a bone marrow transplant. By show of hands in our room, how many of you know what a bone marrow transplant is? Okay, so I thought they broke out like chainsaws and they were going to like cut her open and put marrow into her and let it grow or whatever, and it doesn't really work that way. You need to have a donor and you need to have a DNA match. And Erik is, could probably tell his story better than I'll tell it, but I'll just tell you this. The first 5 days when my wife had leukemia, we had tens of thousands of people reach to us with incredible benevolence and offering all sorts of kind things, but several really high-integrity people said, you need to meet Erik Sauer from There Goes My Hero, because he's going to help you with your wife. And I reached to him about 6 days later, 10 days after my wife's diagnosis, which was opening day. He came down to Johns Hopkins, where my wife had been in the hospital for 11 days at that time, and we met, and he told me about his foundation and his story. Go ahead and take 2 minutes, because Todd doesn't know who you are, and you're one of the reasons we're here tonight, and we're not only raising money for the organization, but we're saving lives through swabbing. So please don't leave tonight without getting swabbed, or at least thinking about getting swabbed, and I'll let Erik take the floor a little bit, because Todd's wondering what's going on. He's just here because he likes me, quite frankly.
We all love you. And Jen, not you.
Oh, right, and Jen. That's a good point. She's prettier than me.
Well, first I just want to acknowledge my friends in the red shirts in the back. All our volunteers back there. So
there you go. They're all in red.
So I started this organization, There Goes My Hero, in 2009, about a year after my own leukemia diagnosis. My wife...
She's here in the front.
So my wife was about 9.5 months pregnant, about as pregnant as you can be without having a baby in your hands.
Kind of like the last time I saw you last March, right?
Yeah, 2 out of the last 3 years.
Right on.
And I hadn't been feeling particularly well, and I had spent some time at Upper Chesapeake here, and great doctor there, Dr. Nevada Putin, said, "You have leukemia." And said, I'm from Hopkins, that's where I was taught, you need to go there. So I got the next bus down to Hopkins, which happened to be an ambulance, and I ended up, kind of the first conversation I had with the doctors at Hopkins was that I needed a bone marrow transplant. I ended up having a couple rounds of chemotherapy, and all I spent about 107 days. I did spend 107 days at Hopkins, all while my wife was home with a 4.5-year-old son and with our newborn baby. I ended up finding a match. She is now 24. At the time she was 19, and she is from Germany. So we got a chance to meet her a couple of years ago. She came over here, we took her down, had a crab cake at John Stevens, took her down to DC, took her up to Philadelphia, see Liberty Bell, sent her to New York, New Hampshire.
But there was a period of time where you didn't have a match. You thought you might die in this process.
Yeah, there's a lot of times I thought I might die. And one of them was from not having a match, certainly, and then just the trials and tribulations of the treatments, which you're in the throes of right now. It just gets very tricky.
Yeah, my wife has zero immunity right now, so she can't be with us tonight, although I am going to Skype her in. She's gotten very good at Skype and meeting people on Skype and saying hello. So the story picks up that he was diagnosed and started a foundation in 2009. I became very impressed by the things they were doing here locally. This is a local organization. It's a small grassroots. He's from Bel Air. It's a lot of Baltimore people. And we've had the chance to meet some survivors that want to come and coach my wife and get her better. So it's been awesome over the last, I've known Erik 30 days, 31 days, I think, today. We've known each other about a month. And I reached to Todd, and I really reached to you just because I thought you might be coming home at some point in the next 4 or 5 months, because Joe Flacco had already called, and I didn't realize Joe was with Todd and with Dennis Pitta and with Justin Tucker in Las Vegas. I heard from all of them at the same time on the same weekend. And when Todd reached to me, he said, "I'm coming to Baltimore in 2 weeks. Maybe we could do something the week I'm in." He said, "I'm in Monday. You want to do Tuesday?" I said, "Sure, let's do Tuesday." So tonight, even before we're really ready, tonight's a little bit of training wheels for all of our volunteers for There Goes My Hero and for swabbing. Tell everyone about swabbing so they understand what that is, and even educate Todd as we're going along.
Oh, sure. So there's a DNA match. That's what we're looking for here. So that woman in Germany matched with me. So there's this 10-point scale. And what we're trying to do is collect DNA samples off the people. Anybody here who swabbed their cheek.
That's how his life was saved. His life was saved when a 19-year-old girl took a cotton swab in the left side and the right side of her mouth, put it in an envelope, probably didn't think anything about it, and then the phone rang and said, "We need to save someone's life." She didn't know whose life she was saving. She literally went to the doctor, gave blood. It's a little more than giving blood, but it's not any more damaging than that.
It's a procedure, and there's really 2 ways that you can give your bone marrow, and one is they take it from your hip bones, and the other way is they give you some medication, and it comes out of your bones into your blood, and then they take it out of your blood. So much like you would...
And that was put into your body that saved your life.
It's interesting. It was taken out in Germany, flown out of Frankfurt, landed in Dulles, driven up I-95, comes into Baltimore, finds its way into me in about 24 hours.
Into your emaciated, 180-pound, withered away. Man had pneumonia 14 different times in the hospital over the 6 months. So, we're talking about some serious stuff here, and that's a pathway I don't want to see my wife go through, and anybody like Todd that loves my wife doesn't want to see her go through that either. So we're in the process now. We just got my wife out of the hospital today, and in a way to give forward for us, to pay it forward, we're trying to save someone you know's life later on down the line. We're hoping that there's a donor for my wife. Maybe someone in this room would be a donor for my wife. I'm not sure. It's a 1 in a million kind of a match thing, but it's a pretty serious thing we're doing tonight, and that's why Todd's here tonight. So once again, give Todd a round of applause for coming out and being part of it. All the money for the autographs tonight and swabbing. Tell everybody how to swab and all that, because they can do that right here on the spot, and there's not a whole lot of pre-qualifications for that.
So very simple. It's a little glass of water to wet your mouth and a Q-tip for all intents and purposes. So you take the Q-tip, spend about 10 seconds on one cheek, put it in an envelope. Next Q-tip, other cheek, put it in the envelope. shut it, match it with some paperwork and a sticker, and we'll take it from there.
And you get your picture taken with Todd when
And
the
you get a
show's over
picture.
tonight in the back, in front of our banners with our volunteers in the back. So please consider that before we get going, and I'll get to some football conversation and all that stuff moving forward. Tell me about what you did here for charity when you left here. You left an endowment for Franklin Square? Am I making
Franklin
that up?
Square Children's Hospital, yeah.
Now, where did that come from, and the idea of doing that and leaving something with your name on it here?
Well, I spent 10 years here, and you go through it and you figure, okay, how can I not just make it 10 years, but make it a legacy,
Make a difference.
and make a difference.
Sure.
And so, that's what it is for the children that are going to go to the hospital, and the families way down the future is what's their legacy going to be. And so that's what it was all about. And they called me and they said, we want to do some improvements to our children's hospital, make it be able to handle more kids. They said we service the most people in the state of Maryland, and we really need help making it better so we can serve all the kids the way we want to serve them. So said I'm happy to be of help, and we're still in the process. We're still working on raising money. It's a continual deal. So that's one thing that I was super excited about being a part of. And the other thing we did over the years, and as you know well, we've always done the Goodwill.
Well, we're a partner with Goodwill as well.
Yeah, and so that was something fun over the years too. It was
Pitta
fun
took that
for
over,
us.
right?
Pitta took it over. I actually took it over from Shannon Sharp, and so
It's a tight end thing.
It's a tight end thing, but
can
it was fun. We made it fun, but we raised a lot of money over the years for Goodwill.
I've been lucky enough to MC that a number of years moving, and I'll be doing that again for Lisa and everybody down at Goodwill this year. So, the charity part of this and the community part of this for me, something I feel like I've done for 20 years, but I've now got this cause to save my wife's life. It's the biggest fight that I've ever been involved in. And the one thing we want to do is, I just didn't know anything about any of the bone marrow stuff. I didn't know what a bone marrow transplant was. I didn't know what a DNA match was. And then I met Erik, and I've been educated to other people in the community. It's amazing how many people. I went to Al's Seafood in Essex on Easter Sunday, and Al came over, and I've known Al 15, 20 years. Didn't even know he was a bone marrow transplant survivor in 2003 at Hopkins. We had an event 2 nights ago at Barrett's, and for our Angels with There Goes My Hero. And the server that night had been very quietly bringing us iced tea all night. At the end of the night, she stopped everything and said, "Oh, by the way, I'm 23 years old. I had a bone marrow transplant when I was 7 years old at Hopkins." And her donor was anonymous. So you got to meet your donor, right?
I did. Yeah, I did.
And that's not... Is that normal?
It's not typical. It's not typical, no, particularly when someone's overseas. They have to agree. They have to want to meet you, the patient. It's unfortunate, though, because they make you wait a year before you can meet your donor. Because it's not a lot of us get to this point, unfortunately. It's such a tricky disease and such a tricky... The treatment's as dangerous as the disease can be, and that's part of the problem, because like you're saying, your wife has no immune system right now. So lots of things can enter into the equation when you don't have an immune system.
If you love Baltimore sports, you'll love WNST.net.